All right, Los Angeles Chargers draft recap. Chargers, bit of an interesting draft. They end up with 7 selections here, so that's what you're guaranteed with. That's what they end up with. Interesting stuff there. Let's start off with the first round selection of Quentin Johnson, so I'm a big Quentin Johnson fan. Some people really dislike him. He's definitely a very controversial prospect. I'm a big fan. I think he could be really good. To me, he's the one guy I look at as like a guy I can actually see winning on the outside consistently. Here's where things get weird. The Chargers were kind of the one team that this draft almost felt perfect for because of all the over-the-middle receivers, all the slot receivers available. It felt like that's the way I expected them to go after a slot receiver. They decided to not make that decision, and then went after Quentin Johnson, who, again, my favorite receiver, so I'm not mad at it, just a little bit surprised by it. I do think it makes some sense, though. Again, get the best player available. Don't worry so much on fit. If they're good players, you will figure it out. Maybe this means Keenan Allen will go over the middle more. Maybe him and Quentin Johnson can kind of take turns being the inside receiver and things of that nature. I do think Johnson could still be a good inside receiver, so I don't necessarily hate it. And again, Keenan Allen, not getting any younger, right? You do have to eventually find, a guy who can be an outside receiver after him. So maybe there's some logic there as well. At the end of the day, you got Justin Herbert. Make it as easy as possible for him to throw it, and make it as easy as possible for him to throw it down the field. I like all of that. I think that's really smart. So Mike Williams, Quentin Johnson, and Keenan Allen selection feels very Madden of them, and I'm going to support it. So also, just so you know what the chart is next to me, that's the players, the position they play, where they were drafted, and then finally where they ranked on the consensus big board. So Quentin Johnson ranked 25th on the consensus big board, kind of got fair value there, drafting him at 21. Then we have Tuli Tulupu, who is someone who I kind of like as a player. I think he has some interesting analytics, which is good to see. Definitely feels like he could be kind of a day one good pass rusher on the edge. A bit of a bigger guy too at the edge position at 266, 6'3". So not like this huge guy where you wonder if he'll even be able to work as an edge, but definitely on the bigger side. Has size. And I think again has the production that you like to see out of USC. So definitely someone where at pick 54. They got him at, he was on the consensus big board at 63. And for the Chargers, listen, it's not like they need someone to start for them. You have Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. You just need one of those guys comes out off the field, someone who can come on and just sort of fill that role. I think he could be able to do exactly that. They then got Dan Henley, someone who was 71st on the consensus big board. They get him at 85, so there you go. Getting someone a little later than most people thought would go. I wasn't crazy about really any of the linebackers outside of Jack Campbell in this draft class, but at pick 85, there is reason to believe that he could potentially be, a guy who could come in and just play, just be a guy in the room. He has the tools. I think maybe he's a bit raw, I would say, is my kind of critique of him, but at the same time, there's reason to believe that he could eventually grow in and, like I said, just be a player for them, if not a star, and I think they could use some linebacker help. Kenneth Murray has not yet lived up to the hype of being a first-round pick. You did get Eric Kendricks. He should be good, but, could use another guy in the building, certainly. So I think that's probably a good pick on several different fronts. They then got Darius Davis. I wonder if he's the guy who they're going to now have be a slot guy, which I kind of like. My old expression is never let a day two go by in the draft class without selecting at least one receiver or safety, and they let that happen. They didn't draft a safety or receiver in round two, or in day two, but this is round 4 where they went out and they got Darius Davis. So they kind of still same idea, because you can get good receivers at this spot. Runs a 4.36, only 5'8", 165 pounds. So you just see that right away and you're like, oh, okay, slot guy, got it, understood. Not a ton of production, unfortunately, is part of the issue, which is why, you see where the consensus big board had it. It's over an 100 pick reach, and that's just never a good thing. That's just not a good idea. Typically, if someone is projected to go 200th and you select them with the 100th pick, more often than not, they end up playing like a guy who was supposed to go 200th, then 100th. That's just how it works. But, again, there's exceptions every year. Maybe he'll be one of them. Certainly should fill a role, though. So don't dislike getting the player. Think maybe they could have gotten him a little later is the issue. Maybe there were better players available now. Jordan McFadden is the next guy on this list. He is someone who, again, good. I think this is a good pick. He's someone who was good in 2021, not great in 2022. And actually he was good in 2020 as well. So he has multiple years of good production, just not recently. So I like this selection of kind of a buy low candidate. Again, a bit of a reach though. That's the one thing I would say. 222nd is where he ranked on the consensus big board. He was selected at 156. And again, I'm not saying you always have to simply just follow the consensus big board. If you like a guy, go ahead and get it this late in the draft. I'm not going to fault you too much for it. But, obviously you would have loved it if they got someone else maybe better and then they were able to still get McFadden later on in the draft. That could have been possible. So Scott Matlock is the player they selected with pick number 200. Another reach here. But again, they need guys who can stop the run. And this is where I'm actually just going to straight up defend this pick. He could be a good run defender right away, and that's just what they need. They're not here looking for guys who are going to be, the best player available at pick 200. You don't have to do that throughout the draft. I think it's a mistake to not do it early on, and I think that early on they drafted best player available, which are also players that will help them. But later on, you got to get guys who can stop the run. Matlock should be able to help you do that, so I'm a fan of that selection. And finally, Max Duggan out of TCU. Will he come for Justin Herbert's job? Is Justin quarterback controversy? Okay, no. Obviously not. Herbert is the guy. But given the fact that the only other quarterback on the roster was Easton Stick, they could use a backup quarterback. Sure, drafting one in round 7. I'm not going to fault you for it. So, as a whole, how do I feel about this draft? Mostly positive. I think they had the first 3 picks, big fans of. And then the other picks were all kind of reaches, but they were all reaches that I understood. The next 3 at least were all reaches that I actually kind of get, and I'm not overly mad by, because again, I do think the Chargers are ready to compete right now, and I think that with Quentin Johnson, one of the things everyone talked about last year, the Chargers are so stupid. Throw the ball down the field, you idiots. What are you doing? Their receiving core was decimated. They had Mike Williams and Keenan Allen were hurt for like the first half of the season, and then all of a sudden they come back, they start playing better, and then everyone is like, now you're doing it, now you're being smart. They had injuries. I'm not saying there weren't also coaching issues. There were, but when your receiving core is completely decimated, it makes it tougher. So getting a couple of receivers just to get depth at that position is smart as well. You have more than 2 receivers play basically every snap, and you have, I don't know how many receivers take snaps in a given season, like 7, 8 for each team. Got to get some guys. So definitely, I think pretty smart by the Chargers to make sure that was the biggest need in my opinion, and they delivered on that. So yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the Chargers draft? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.